pops up with, I forgot this one was the one where Liam Finn missed the drop goal at the end. Dope. And then to make matters worse, he was talking to my dad who told him. So then I know all about the matches. I remember the matches. Thanks for that, Dad.
I mean, that's some great recall from the kid, though, isn't it? You've got to say. If he does as well recalling all his schoolwork that you're helping him learn over these isolation times, then he'll do fantastic in his non-existent exams that the kids don't have to do these days.
Well, this is his SATs aren't happening this year, so he's all right.
Sorry, Tim, you watched some of the game and you were saying...
Yeah, I was trying to work out why they got to that game, other than the drop goal at the end. I was like, there's a lot of this game to get through just for 2-minute period.
Yeah, it does feel like so many of the games that spring to mind are games where the last 10 minutes are the most exciting. Kind of, the £1 million game, Rovers against Salford.
You could have just shown they did just show the last 2 minutes, didn't they, of the £1 million game?
Pretty much that's all there was to show, wasn't there?
Yeah, so you could have just shown the end of the whole game with the drop goal.
Yeah,
or not.
It is strange that you don't know how much they've got footage of maybe some of the really great Wigan, Saints, Bradford games of the sort of early noughts, 2000 to 2002. There was some real ding dong battles. Then there was I remember there was a playoff game it was the week before. It was when the playoffs were in the format they are now, and it was like the week before the final eliminator. So it was the top two played each other, and I think that year it might have been Saints and Leeds. This was in the mid-noughts, and that was one of the most intense games you're ever going to see. And it might have been in 2000. It might have been when Bradford last won it. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was one of those games that you think, why can't they pull that one out rather than kind of a game that all hinges on a 36-year-old missing a kick in the last minute. But who am I to say? I watched a couple of Wigan Saints. Well, actually Saints Wigan, because I always enjoy watching the ones where we won away more than the ones where we won at home. Rewatching a couple of those in the week as well, because Emma's working from home day tends to end after mine. I don't know, she's just not as good at getting up in the morning, and then she has contracted longer hours than I am. So I managed to end a bit early, and if I can get out of the washing up or something, I can sit and watch a Wigan game by the time she's finished.
Shocking.
But yeah, any games that you watch, the Google form's still there. We're posting out links during the week. Send in the reviews of the games you're rewatching, because it's always fun to reminisce. It's all we can do at the moment.
That's all we've got.
Talking of reminiscing, me and Tim and Sarah are going to talk about our favourite hookers now. So get ready for that. But first voices you're going to hear are mine with Nate Gladden from the Rugby League in America podcast, and then we'll get into it. So it's a special bonus then. We've got Nate Gladden from the Rugby League in America podcast. I mean, it's been a while since you've been on SLP, so it's an absolute delight to have your voice in. We're talking about hookers, the number 9 wearing kind. So I don't want any of your exotic travel stories here, Nate. I want just... but who in your view are your favourite hookers that you've watched play the game? And then also give us a bit of an insight into some of the guys emerging in the USRL that maybe could be talked about as some hookers that you never know might sneak into a New York or an Ottawa in the future.
Oh God, yeah, no doubt. So on the hooker side of things, I'm a big fan. I mean, obviously, nobody can go past like a Cam Smith. Nobody can go past that kind of guy. I like Sam Powell. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Sam Powell. I like that kind of player, like everybody else would. The
sort of steady, calm,
collected.
Good decision makers.
Good decision making.
Who aren't afraid to put themselves around in defence.
Exactly. Cameron McInnes. Cameron McInnes, to me, from St. George of the Loire, he should not, he was the highest tackle count last year. He's amazing. He was out for the beginning because of an injury. So, but I think he's a great, steady as the ship kind of guy. Those are the ones that I kind of like. That said, I like the idea that somebody like Brandon Smith has come in. He's underneath Cameron Smith. I like to see like when he played in the Maori versus Indigenous All-Stars game. And he went crazy, but I like the fact he's got a bit of a difference to him. There, he's got a little bit of goon in him, which I think is good. They're my favorite.
To kick on whatever tackle.
He's not afraid to kick on any tackle. So as a coach, I would have a freaking heart attack, which is why I probably kind of like watching him play. I think I think he's going to be good. I think the one guy that I haven't mentioned yet that I do think is going to be really, really good going forward is actually, and I can't believe I forgot his name. They just switched him over to the West Tigers from Melbourne Storm, Harry Grant, and then he didn't get a run in because of the season's stop. So I think he'll be really good going forward. I think he's a long term. I think we'll hear his name for a very long time to come. But as far as over here, like right here in the good old US of A, a lot of our teams will bring in they'll bring in the halves and sometimes the hookers from overseas. But some of the teams have gone with the local boys. Somebody don't worry about that beep. That's the coffee pot going off. But some of our boys one of our guys that is actually now I think he's got a citizenship. He definitely falls under our domestic quota and stuff like that now. Jerome Easthope for Brooklyn Kings. He's a really good ball player, originally from overseas, but he's been with them from pretty much since the beginning, I believe. And he's a really smart leader. He's their captain. As far as the domestic boys, personally, I think Ryan Burrows, he can play in the halves and he can play fullback, but I actually think he'd be a hell of a hooker because he understands the game just enough now that he could wreak havoc. I don't know why he hasn't been tried out there. That's just my personal opinion.
Dante, good scoots, wouldn't he? You'd think as well.
He's actually quick. He wants to find the line. He would play in the style of Damian Cook. He wants to find the opening to keep the game going, the pace going. So I actually personally think he'd be really good if they I think our national team, if we put Christian Freed, he prefers to play hooker, and I understand that. But if you put, he's getting a little long in the tooth because he's been around for. But he could give it another go. But if we were to get on the field this year and play against the team, against the national team this year, based on the situation, if we put Ryan Burrows at hooker and we put Corey Makelum at that back role, and you put Connor Donahue and you put Christian Freed, who both know how to play hooker, but they can play in the halves, and you put them behind Burrows, they would let him know when to go. And that combination would be I personally think it'd be a great combination. But getting back to it, I think Dante Jaquette for the Delaware Black Foxes, he is a very underrated player. You don't realize that he's there for 78 minutes, and then he takes advantage of you late in the game. And he's got a sevens background, so he understands go kind of thing. He was a scrum half in rugby, so he already had that mindset of being the guy behind the tackle kind of concept. He already at least had the idea of where you look, listening to the halves, looking and seeing what so he had a little bit of that base knowledge, and it showed last year, and he looked very good as a rookie in the sport. And I think he's going to be dangerous. I think another one that is highly underrated because he can also play lock, but he can play hooker, is Bart Longchamp for the Tampa Mayhem. Watch out for the Tampa Mayhem. If we get the season going this year, I think the Tampa Mayhem, they are the team to watch out for. I think they have a nasty pack, like a lot of big boys that can play in the heat. And they got Shaka Zulu. They got Andrew Zuluaga coming back and play in the props. He's been playing overseas for a couple of years. He'll be coming back this year. I think the other thing that can happen with them is Bart can play hooker and he can play lock, but he's about, for those, he's not super, super tall. He's slightly taller than me, but he's stout. He's really stout. He can tackle and fight with the big boys, but he can run with the backs, and he's he's a very intelligent player, like a distributor of the ball. He knows how to play between the pack and the backs the right way. And I think he's going to be a big help. The other guy that nobody's heard of, if he comes in, he just got down to New South Wales to play in their comp down there. Everything's happened. He's going to come home and hopefully play in our domestic league if we get it. He played with Roots. He played in the halves for San Francisco Savage last year, but I think he's a hooker, born and bred and ready to go. And his name is, they call him Sonny, but his real name is Sanjay, but Sonny Ajay. And he is a sevens player, college rugby player. He can play all through the spine. But he's a nasty dude. I saw him run and we played in the nines tournament last year in South Carolina. I watched a big Samoan dude. I apologize, Polynesian, I guess I should say, because I believe it's Samoan. But the guy get a run off the kickoff and run full head of steam, and I was really unmotivated about the fact that I was going to have to tackle him. And I watched Sonny shoot straight in one-on-one. Sonny's pretty much my size, and take him right off his feet immediately and jump right back up and keep going. And he did that over and over and over again. And if he goes in and they put him at 9, I think he would be the best 9 in the entire league in his rookie year next year if they put him at that position if he plays for.
From Cam Smith to Sonny Adjai, like that kid's going to be buzzing to have been in that conversation, isn't he? That's amazing insight, Nate. Certainly some names there that we won't have got in the rest of our discussion about the best hookers around the league, but I think that's really cool why we got your little bit of input there, so buzzing for that. Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it's always fun to chat to Nate. He texts me at about, well, Messenger, whatever, messaged me on the internet about 1:30 on, maybe 1:30 on Saturday afternoon, saying, I've got an idea. I kind of want to talk about something, and I want to talk about it with a Super League person. So, what you're up to? And I'm like, well, busy calendar, sweeping up some rubble in the garden, and then doing the washing up again, disinfecting some door handles, and then I'm free for the rest of forever. So by 2:00 we were on a Skype call recording an episode of the Rugby League in America podcast, which I encourage you guys to go and listen to. I was kind of trying to bring Nate back from some crazy ideas about how to restructure the competition, and seeing if we could find a bit of common ground there. So go back and check out that. And thanks, Nate, for that. I mean, who'd have thought that we would have been talking about? I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but some of these USARL hookers in the same conversation that we were talking about Cameron Smith and Brandon Smith and people like that was remarkable. But now we're going to get to the other fan views that we've had sent in. We should probably alternate through these, having a bit of a chat on each one as we go through. Sarah, why don't you start by reading out your dad's input?
Okay, so he said, as an FC fan, seen some poor, some good, and some very good. Many will say Richard Swain's the best we had, if only for the 2005 Cup final performance. My choice was local boy who started and ended his career with us, with trips to Sheffield and Australia in between. I think he redefined the dummy half roll into the scooting we see nowadays. Not forgetting the up-the-jumper play seen at Headingley against the Rhinos, pure rugby gold. Met him when he came to see a patient at work. Lad asked if I knew who he was. Told him remembered him going to Sheffield. Jackson's only comeback was to ask if I was one of the bastards who used to spit on him from Threepenny Stand. There must also be a mention for Mr. Tackle 52, a moment in club history. Away from FC, currently Clark, McShane and Ruby setting the standards. Previously, Cunningham and Newton were the big names. Newton's thuggery always should count against him when looking at greats.
Yeah, I read your dad's and I assumed he was talking about Lee Jackson. So that's who he was talking about, wasn't it?
He didn't mention it at any point, no.
No, he didn't. You had to add his name in because people were like, "Where's it going?" The pieces
there
are
were
fitting
too many
together.
hims and he's in there.
So, I guess that's a good place to start this conversation. Is Lee Jackson, isn't it, Sarah? And you'll obviously have remembered him way better than me and Tim. I mean, I remember his very late stage of his career. I remember him being a Leeds player, and I remember him ending at Hull, but kind of feeling like a bit more of a bit part player at that stage in a way. But of course, before that, he was a Great Britain international, played in the '95 World Cup, had a very, very good spell with the Knights in the Australian competition. So, what do you remember of Lee Jackson? Do you, like your dad saying, kind of a trailblazer for what was to come?
I think in some ways I was a bit young to actually understand like the finesse of a player and what they did, particularly when he was first with us. I think he was still around when I first started watching in the early days, but not really. So yeah, in his first time at Hull. But then when he came back, obviously he was influential. I think he brought that experience that you see with players like I guess Gareth Ellis even, who have been around a few clubs